So I'll start with Siddhant, all the way there. So Siddhant, you started, right? And I know your journey since you started. You started as like a very quick commerce brand. You actually got quick commerce for, or let's say fast fashion for Indian wear even before fast fashion was a word. So are you changing anything now given that it's become a hot term, or are you, what do you see trends changing now?
Hi everyone, I'm Siddhant, founder of Libas. See, honestly, in my journey, what started out as fast fashion and what the industry needs is, evolving literally every day. The speed is increasing. I think our whole company, the ethos of the company is built around how to make things faster, how to move things around faster, right? The idea was initially 60 days to launch new fashion was pretty fast. And now, I'll give you a small example. Yesterday, there was a reel that went viral of Anushka Sharma. She was wearing this white product with printed like it had a unique identity, that product. And coincidentally, we had launched something similar 2-3 months back. And that product was fine. Like it was an average product which we thought will sell out in its life cycle and we'll just move on. And suddenly, after that reel going viral, we realized we woke up the next morning, the number one product on our site or on our website was that particular product. And we were like that, this is what truly fast fashion is, right? We are actually working or probably creating fashion basis what's trending on social media. And for an example like this, I think even 30 to 45 days is not fast enough. So I think as a brand, what we are trying to do is consistently trying to, spot those trends, use AI tools, use technology to understand it faster than we do today as well. And there is no concept of a mood board anymore, which used to be there like, 5 years back, 6 years back. It's
But
all real time.
so I'll jump in there. But how till when is it sustainable, right? Like how do you look at your supply chain? Like obviously the customer wants it, saw it today, wants it tomorrow, wants it now. But you as a brand also have to make money.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line यार कि इससे तेज नहीं हो सकता?
See, I think it's an evolution where you keep improving your efficiencies, your speed. Like the requirement is 2 days, right? That's the speed that the customer wants or expects. Unfortunately, it's not possible. If I'm at say 40 days today, I was at 75 days 2 years back. The constant effort is going to be keep on improving till whatever best we can do, till whatever technology supports. Obviously, it's not never going to be 2 days, but I'm saying 15 days, 20 days. So I think it's an evolution. We've cut that speed over the last 7-8 years. Day by day, looked at processes wherever we can cut down lead times, etc. And we've actually come very close to it. Now we are launching some products within 35-40 days as well, and we want to further bring it down to about 15-20 days over the next few years.
Awesome. So Abhinav, next with you, right? You launched a celebrity-led brand, and you're much newer than let's say a Libas was. So when you entered, did you think about fast fashion when you were entering that? I have to change designs in every 30 days or 50 days. How did you look at it when you were starting up?
Yeah, we are very new. We just completed our first year on 14th of February. So, 1 year old now. And our approach has been very different from fast fashion. We said we are not fast fashion at all. So that kind of simplified a lot of our lives. I think in this sort of hyper world where everything is, so fast, we wanted to sort of take a step back and focus on first principles, build a premium brand which operates predominantly in two main seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. It also allows us to have a very tight offering. We don't chase trends. Everything that we offer as a brand is more classic, more everyday, more essential. So, that is the brand that we wanted to build. And that is absolutely the antithesis of fast fashion.
I think I've noticed it on your website also that it's completely opposite. So you're saying you're going after the customer that does not want it or does not want something that's trending. They want their basics.
Absolutely. So we want to go beyond basics. By beyond basics, what I mean is that, hey, your everyday white t-shirt, how can I make that more premium? How can I make that something that when you wear just feels right? And then when it feels right, then, that's the t-shirt you buy all colors in. So the idea is not to offer a trend, but offer ease of choice. And become your go-to brand, where you're looking for a comfortable T-shirt or a shirt or sneakers, or we only have two sneakers in two colors, white and black. So we've kept it very simple in that sense, and I think the customer that we are speaking to is somebody who actually wants to move away from trends and wants few good things.
And so I'll move to Siddhartha, who is the founder of XYXX. So do you see any of these quick fast fashion things happening in underwear?
I kind of resonate with my friend here, right? We are also not a
But you're in a basics category also.
Yeah, we are an essential brand, right, to start off with. But one
you
quick
you
thing
can't
that-
see someone's underwear on Instagram and then want it like that.
No. It does happen. Like there are people out there who keep reaching out to us with those requests, but it's आजकल India में even now it is black, blue, and gray underwear that sells for men, right? The only thing that I would like to highlight is that if you would have to ask me 2 years back, I'll say I'm a men's innerwear and a loungewear brand, right? But over a period of last 2 years, we have evolved into a full stack apparel brand. And that journey has happened after we spoke to our consumers as to what they want from us or expect from us, right? So what largely is happening is that brands are evolving based on the feedback and that they are receiving from the consumers, right? So one part of let's say trends, let's say for a fast fashion brand that has to follow. In our case, it is about speaking to consumers. What else can we offer to them, right? And through that, our apparel is not, let's say, very fast fashion. It is more essentials. It's more classic. It's more technology-led, for that matter.
You guys are very offline heavy, right? Because this category is offline heavy. With like Blinkit doing fashion, with these new quick 60-minute fashion delivery apps, do you see a lot of that changing? And are you getting a lot of demand from these new age apps?
Again, so 4 years back, yes, about 60% of our revenue was offline and 40% was online. Now about 85% of our revenue is digital, right? 85% is digital.
It's digital,
Right.
And driven by quick commerce.
Yes, so it's largely not quick commerce. Marketplaces, e-commerces are equally strong. Our own D2C is also extremely good revenue. But quick commerce definitely is the fastest growing channel, right? Essentials is something that people need fast. And Amazon figured it out. That is why Amazon is the leader in this space. And when the quick commerce folks came in, they had a natural advantage over Amazon for that matter. And therefore, like Blinkit, for example, has evolved into one of our biggest channels. In a span of 2 years, what Amazon took 6 years to build, Blinkit has been able to do it in the last 2 years itself. So that's the speed.
So Adarsh, you run multiple stores offline, right? How does changing customer demand so quickly impact that supply chain to the store?
Yeah. So online and offline obviously behave very differently. So while online we have the advantage of planning things right to the last moment. So for example, let's say my inventory is going to be ready on the 30th, I can plan the launch on the 1st, right? Whereas when it comes to offline, there are a lot more things that you have to plan for. And also, the difference between online and offline is that you can just decide that, okay, we are launching in the next half an hour. In offline, that is not how it works, right? Offline has to be a lot more planned. You need that lead time in place. If something needs 15 days, it needs 15 days. So online allows you to be a lot more agile, flexible, whereas offline needs a lot more planning in advance, and you kind of have to stick to those planned things.
But do you see like offline customers dropping because they're looking for new trends and those trends are now available online?
Not really. So I think the online customer and the offline customer typically are different, right? People who want to shop online want to shop online, and the ones who want to shop offline want to shop offline. And even like when we launched our first set of stores, right, one feedback that we would very typically get from customers is that we have been seeing your ads for a very long time. We wanted to shop, but we couldn't because you didn't have any stores, right? So I don't think that happens. yes, it is important that we are able to match up the pace of online in the offline world as well. So for example, if we launch and there are products which are available online but they are not available in our stores, then yes, that will lead to a drop off because people will then still gravitate towards the online channel. So we will end up kind of sabotaging our own offline revenue by doing that. So that is something that we have to work on, or ensuring that the pace of offline meets the pace of online. Yeah.
Deep, I'll ask the next question to you. So payments is a critical aspect, right? Someone comes, they check out, and people want clothes fast, but they want to check out faster. So what are you seeing at PhonePe with this trend? Are you making it more frictionless? Like, what does PhonePe look like 5 years from today?
I'll talk about what we are doing today before we get to 5 years later. So I think when you talk about frictionless payments, I think the most important thing is availability of the instrument you want to make payment with on the checkout. And for any brand, that's the final moment of truth. Right? So what we do is we work very closely with all the online merchant partners we have, where we have provided solutions like device tokenization, which basically allow consumers to save their credit cards and debit cards on the PhonePe app once and use across thousands and lakhs of merchants across the country, across all online brands. That actually allows consumers two things: lesser time for completing the payment because they've already saved the payment instrument, and there's a much higher success rate of the transaction. So we've seen 3, 4, 5% absolute additional success rate, and which directly translates into additional revenue for the merchants. So that is one. The second one is affordability. So a lot of developed world is actually, the economy is driven by credit. And over the last couple of years, we have actually worked closely with banks and the entire ecosystem to make credit very easily available to consumers in the form of a card, a RuPay credit card, for example, which can be linked with UPI, and you just can make a payment with your biometric. So it's faster and affordable.
Going forward, let's say, what do you see is like what do you see the future of payments coming to? Where the trend heading? Some new technology that's going to come out in the next 4-5 years, or something that you predict that should happen?
I think India has actually been an example to the entire world with UPI. And we've actually been able to talk about and showcase to the world that we operate at scale with various products on UPI already. I think in terms of, and in context of the forum here, transactions such as making payments seamlessly, like an auto pay, you set up a mandate and the money gets auto debited from your account when you actually make a purchase. Or for example, if you purchase 2 different products from a single merchant, one product is getting delivered on day 1. Money gets debited only on day 1. You don't actually have to pay on delivery or cash on delivery, etc. Right? All of these give a lot more confidence to consumers, and these are products which we are investing in.
UPI AutoPay for sure. UPI AutoPay is basically giving a credit card subscription finally can happen for mass market India. So it is probably the best new thing out there. Indranil sir, you run malls, and you probably seen how offline, and you probably in this sector before even online came into the picture, right? So have you seen like a drop in footfall in malls, that people are shopping more online, or you feel like this is here to stay?
No. Let me tell you, footfalls are only going up. Footfalls are going up, but each footfall is being more selective as to what they want. It is not that a person comes in and then goes over the entire place and then selects from, if a lady comes in, there are about 75 brands to select from, then they go all over the place and then select one. That doesn't happen anymore. They're very selective, and brands have become consumables. fashion has become consumable. It has become like a burger. You will have to agree to that, that they look at something today. If it is bought today, great. If it isn't bought today, they will not buy it the next time. It is not going to be possible in a mall that they'll come back to the same rack, to the same place, to the same nesting table and buy it the next day or the day after.
And the reason for that?
That's how the customer has evolved. They want newness. Everybody here, whether they admit or not, everybody is looking for new. So when you come to a mall and you are attracted to something, you may go into the trial room with it, and if all goes well, you might buy it. Even if you do not, you're not going to come in for that the next day. It's a fallacy actually that people come in for the same thing the next day when they have more money or they have more, whether their mom or dad is coming or your boyfriend is coming. That doesn't happen. It's consumable. Today's is the day. If it is not today, then.
And how would, like, let's say we have 5 brands right here, right? How do they deal with this?
I know Libas. Libas is there with me, was there with me when I was with Sarat City Capital. So I know very well how they went. FS is not there with me, but I tried getting FS on board, but we just didn't click at that point of time. So I know about some of you guys and or your competitors who were there with me when I was there with Sarat City. It's very simple. The store should be engaging. The store should have the inventory, and the inventory should evolve over a period of time. The assortment should appeal to the customer. The path towards great sales is very, very simple. Great merchandise, great visual appeal. The path to the trial room is perfect. The productivity on the floor is enthralling. And then after the trial room, the way to wrap up the customer and get him to the POS is like perfect. If all this is correct, you have a great store, you have a great brand, everything super smooth. If you don't have any of these, well, in some places the mall can help. Let me just mention here that usually malls say that you have 2 hours of coming in during the day or the night, and you have to bring in your stuff then, and then you have to get it read by the RFIDs and stuff like that. I'm actually going far beyond that with my new mall. I'm trying to make it 24/7 for you guys, so that you can bring in your stuff at any given point of time, and you can start trading as early as possible. Because I sense that your customer has come in, and your brand is already online. It's not matching. The brand is already online and showcasing the new stuff, and it is not there in the store. Or it is there in the store, but it has not been read. Like you all spoke about the processes of offline. It's a little bit more detailed. And if you're not helped, you cannot get farther. So those things are being taken care of.
Awesome. So next one, I think I'll point to Siddhant and Abhinav. Both of you, Siddhant has launched a celebrity-led brand, like a sister brand, and Abhinav, you've launched a pure celebrity-led brand. How does that impact? Like, tell me one pro and con that you guys have seen by doing a celebrity-led brand with the new age trend change as well.
Sorry, I don't have a celebrity-led brand. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. But you work with a celebrity,
Yeah,
right?
so we work with a lot of celebrities and we have a lot of observations there. In fact, I think what we've realized, I think there are 2 sides of the coin, right? One, we've seen certain brands when it comes to celebrity in not just endorsing but actually living through the brand, right? Where what we see in the case of Arcs, what we've seen in the case of Super U, those celebrities are actually so passionate about this whole project that the customer knows the resonance of the brand through that celebrity. They can feel that celebrity through that brand, right? So they feel, but versus in the case of brands like us where, we are getting say a brand ambassador for 1 year and they're endorsing the brand, and it's very like commercial and very transactional, to be honest. And we've realized that people to an extent now are not resonating with that. I think people are looking for quality content when it comes to celebrity. Our celebrity strategy has completely changed over the last 1 or 2 years. We feel that instead of getting one biggest celebrity and endorsing that brand, endorsing your celebrity, I feel that today influencers, micro influencers, and probably smaller celebrities who are growing in their career as well, those are resonating with the audiences really well. So we did this capsule that we said that why don't we bring we did fast fashion, we brought speed to launching new fashion, we brought speed to deliveries through quick commerce. I said, how can we bring speed to marketing as well, right? And that's where we decided that any, say, a TV artist or a big boss artist or any movie celebrity who's suddenly going viral, how do we kind of get them or sign them within 24 to 48 hours and scale? And that has worked tremendously well for
Yeah,
us.
it's basically influencers are becoming the new celebrities. They keep coming, going, and then you pick on to the one that's trending.
Exactly. Because, so we realized whether I spend like 10 lakhs on a campaign or 10 crores on a campaign, the relevance of the campaign actually is just for that 1 week or 2 weeks nowadays.
Yeah.
So
That's the change that fast fashion is bringing. But like for Abhinav, I think my question with you would have been that if there's fast fashion happening and the trend changes, but let's say you have Ranbir Kapoor, right? He's not associating with that new trend. You can't market your brand like that. But fundamentally, then you are also actually not playing on the fast fashion bandwagon.
Yeah, so in our case, of course, it's very different because Ranbir is not the face of the brand; he's the founder of the brand, and it is a bootstrap business. It is, we run it like our own company. We work together from concept to execution. He's collaborating. He's operating with me. Of course, I lead the business side of things, but he's involved in his creative way and in his strategic way. So when we designed the brand, we kind of designed it with the philosophy that resonated with us, which was sort of timeless. Now, if you look at Ranbir Kapoor as a person, he will say, see you at the movies, but his movies would take 2 years, 3 years to come, right? Because he's just somebody who's so passionate about his craft. And I think a lot of companies that are promoter-led sort of embody the personality and the values of that promoter, and we've done that as well. In a way that, we're not fast fashion. We stick to a less is more strategy. You will see basic designs. But yes, what Ranbir brings, and Ranbir is one celebrity who's a superstar, but he's also not on social media. So it wasn't a typical celebrity brand where you harness a digital audience and then you target them and all of that. We still had to build this brand on first principles, right? Our Instagram had 0 followers on day one. So we had to start from there. Unlike, let's say, other celebrities who have millions of followers and then they promote the brand on their page. So, of course, having Ranbir helps build credibility. The discoverability of the brand was great because people were curious. They walked into the store, they went on to our website. They maybe even bought the first product because they were curious कि यार रणबीर ने क्या बनाया है and क्यों बनाया है और कैसा है. But today, I can say 1 year in, 4 out of every 10 rupees that we've made has come from a repeat purchase. So they might have discovered the brand because the celebrity is the founder and there was curiosity, but they came back and they came back for more. And that sort of goes to say that, hey, maybe we did something right with the product promise. Maybe we did something right with the retail experience. We also launched the brand in an omni-channel way because we were selling basics. So the tactile experience of a good t-shirt or a good denim or a good shirt went a long way in building that trust and credibility, because you're spoiled for choice online. You tune into Instagram and then you're flooded with all kinds of performance ads. So you really don't know, which customer is really a loyal customer, and people are increasingly becoming more flirtatious in this category, right? The idea for us has always been yes, we are a celebrity brand, but we're a community first brand. And we're trying to create, and you will see this year, more and more physical experiences that bring people together. And we're using our retail experiences to also build community. So the idea was not just to sell clothes, but also like, can we do something that makes people feel like they belong to our community? So we've done events there, we've curated experiences there, and that's how we see retail, not just as a point of sale, but as a point of experience.
So, Adarsh, at FS Life, right? You do a lot of, you wear Western wear, right? Western wear is very, like if I would say, very cluttered the way we would look at it, women's Western wear. How are you looking at trends? Like how fast are they happening? What all data do you measure? And what should a brand look at today?
So I think first and foremost, before we talk about fast fashion, it's important to understand why fast fashion even exists and what's the customer behavior behind it, right? So at the end of the day, if you, let's say, launch no new product, you will continue to keep getting newer customers, right? Because they've not seen any of your older products, so they will come and they will buy those products. But if you want repeat purchases, that customer is going to come back to say, "Okay, ठीक है, ये तो मैंने देख लिया, what more? Is there anything new that I have to buy from," right? That is where trends come in. In fact, for a brand like Abhinav's, so while they may not be trend in the conventional sense of how a women's Western wear is, but even the newer colors of t-shirts, etc., you launch, right? That at some level plays into the same thing. Or what new are you offering to the customer? That new can vary from brand to brand. So for a Fable Street, new would be different. We have another brand which plays in the modern Indian space, which is called Pinkford. There it is different. Fable Street, because it's Western wear, so there are a lot of global trends to look at, that what kind of silhouettes are picking up, what kind of colors are doing well. On Pinkford, because it's a category which we kind of lead, so there we do our own research where we look at our internal trends. So there, in a way, we are defining the trend rather than looking at global trends. So it's a mix of looking at internal company data. What is it that is done well for us in some seasons? We look at global data. What is trending globally? What are some of the international brands coming up with? What are some of the bigger international designers that come up with? So it's a collective exercise where you look at both internal as well as external data to come up with a certain range plan that you then go on and work with.
Awesome. So Indranil sir, tell us one thing that you feel brands make a mistake when they are going offline, and one thing that they can fix and help them tackle this fast fashion trend that's coming.
See, the popular mistake that online brands do when they come offline is not look at their assortment the way offline stores should be. Leading to, I mean, I won't go into the specifics, but it leads to cut sizes. It leads to gaps in the store, and the experience for the customer is like unfulfilled. I've seen that happening again and again, over and over again with a lot of brands. And accurately, it so happened that when I had to advise these brands, because I was working with 79 D2C brands in Sarat City Capital Mall. Some of you would know. So when I had to advise them and told them this, 3 months, 4 months later, when things got corrected, all of them made their way up. It's happened without any exception at all. So you have to look at offline inventory, production, and supply chain very differently than what you do in online. I won't go into the specifics. You all know the specifics.
So Deep, we spoke about online payments. What about offline? Like, how active are you there? What do you think is the new trends in those?
So it's actually not, we are known for our consumer brand. We're known for holding a good share on the UPI side there. We're actually one of the largest offline merchant acquirers as well. And this is via various products like static QR, which most of us are used to scanning and paying with. But the one real big innovation which has played out over the last couple of years is a speaker. And that
sound
came-
box.
The sound box. We call it the smart speaker. And it basically came up as a discovery where we realized that in a very, very dense purchasing sort of a setup, it's almost impossible for the person at the counter to get a confirmation that the transaction is completed. A lot of times what used to happen was the consumer would show, hey, I've completed the transaction. And a lot of frauds actually perpetrated because of that. So the speaker actually started off as a way to give confirmation to the teller or the person serving the customer that the transaction is completed. We actually introduced some interesting variations and enhancements to that. We actually tied up with Mr. Amitabh Bachchan and we got his voice available at our speakers. That actually was a big hit. And similarly, a lot of other actors, say in South and a lot of other states, that was actually really, really good. As we move forward, we're starting to see that all of these mass offline physical merchants, they actually want to create their own imprint in the economy. They understand the market really, really well, and they are actually wanting to go online. So we're starting to work with them to figure out solutions which are omni-channel. I know omni-channel has been a buzzword for a really long time, but we're actually starting to see that play out now.
Very interesting. The sound box is super cool though. Yeah. So Siddhartha, on XYXX, right? When you moved, when you saw this switched coming to quick commerce, did it enable you to start another brand because then it gives you access to a different channel, faster inventory cycles, because now you can launch another category very quickly on quick commerce. So are you seeing this trend play out in quick commerce, and
Sorry,
where do you
just
see?
to understand, you are saying launch another brand to
It
cater
becomes
to quick
easier
commerce.
to launch multiple categories within the same brand, right? Because you're on quick commerce rather than the traditional offline channel, which was much slower to move product through. So internally, have you seen like a strategy shift within XYXX, and what does XYXX look like for in the next like 2-3 years?
Sure. So I'll answer it this way. See, XYXX was always positioned in the mid to premium segment of the market. And if I was changing my positioning to the online audience, then I would have thought about something what you talked about in terms of launching a new brand or a new category led brand, for example. But our proposition online and offline still remains the same, right? And with that thought process, we were already selling on e-commerce quite strongly, right? Quick commerce was just a channel expansion that happened. What we have realized over a period of time is that initially we saw that a lot of e-commerce business was getting eaten by quick commerce, right? But after a few months, both of the channels started to grow. And one channel which I think slowed down for us or became stagnant was the offline channel, right? So, and that is true for a lot of D2C brands or a lot of new age brands, that in our case, the multi-brand outlet ecosystem where traditionally these innerwear and this merchandise is sold is led by one legacy brand or multiple legacy brands, right? Now to penetrate this segment is very difficult. So while 90% of the market is there, right? But for you to kind of make inroads into it, while we did face some success initially, but continued success in the long term, while you have funds to manage, receivables to manage, lot of things to manage, it's not an easy task, is what we realized, right? Now, coming back to launching a new brand, we never felt the need for it, right? There was very strong consumer pull for XYXX digitally, and that same consumer was existing offline. Maybe quick commerce opened another channel for that consumer to shop. And therefore, that same brand kind of got adopted from a quick commerce perspective.
The next one I'll open up, anyone can answer. People want things faster, right? How is logistics keeping up with it? Like, how do you think the back end in India, is it strong enough? Does it have to improve? Or it is a bottleneck today?
I think for a young brand like us,
that is operating omni-channel. Logistics has been a bit of a learning curve. So we have our own website. We sell on our own website. We have 2 exclusive stores, one in Bombay, one in Delhi. We also have a shop-in-shop in Hyderabad, which is a slightly different retail format. And we're also on quick commerce for certain categories. So our perfumes are available on quick commerce, right? We are operating across multiple channels, and each one requires a different level of servicing. So we've kind of built that capability right now on our own. Of course, after a certain point, you need to build satellite capability across different geographies. There are a lot of solutions out there that we are evaluating. There is Prozo, there are a few others that we are evaluating that can help service those geographies faster. But it has been a bit of a sort of challenge for us. It was a challenge for us at the beginning, and then we realized that the best way to do this and to learn this as a new brand was to do it ourselves and write our own playbook, and then find the right partners to fill in the gaps as we understand more about which markets work for us.
Anyone else?
So I think similar experience, and I feel that today logistics. I mean, we started back in 2014-15, right? The scenario was very different. Today, things have become so easy that just making 2 different technologies or 2 different softwares talk to each other is so easy with a click of a button that, back in the day, 2 years back, cracking 2-day delivery used to be the biggest of problems. Right now, I think all our stores are enabled for quick commerce, and we are delivering products right out of our own offline stores as well within 30 minutes, not just on our own platform, but also platforms like Myntra and all. So that's how good technology has become, right? And 2-day, 1-day is, I think, going to be redundant over the next 2 years because the customer behavior and the customer mindset is now becoming more and more impatient. And we are betting big on quick commerce because even though I think a lot of brands in this space are saying that fashion and quick commerce don't go hand in hand, but I think it's not going to be an option a year later or 2 years later, right? It's going to be a compulsion. So better to start cracking it today itself. So that's how we're looking at it.
It's going to come to same day.
One thing I want to add, just building on what you're saying, is that watch your inventory carefully, right? When you're operating multi-channel with different delivery tats, just to know what where is becomes a reconciliation nightmare logistically. So, like for example, every product that we have, the tag is RFID enabled, everything is scanned, so we know stock, which warehouse. Even if it's in the same warehouse, but which bucket of warehouse is it in within our warehouse? And I think that becomes harder as you have more SKUs and more product. So if you think about solving for it from a first principle sort of outlook right at the beginning, it'll just make your life simpler.
We have time for one last question. What would be like the 2, if anyone can, the 2 things a founder should watch out for while going after this quick commerce trend, or the quick commerce or the fast fashion trend? Like something you have done internally that's worked for you, or something a founder should look out for?
I think for us, the learning has been go slow, and because the model is so new and there are no case studies, especially in the case of fashion and apparel, I think you will learn along the way. Keep it simple. Don't put in like 50,000 inventory to one partner and say that fill it all your dark stores and all. How we are doing it is we are cracking, style by style. So we cracked 50 options, then we moved to 100, then we moved to 150. So I think over the next year and a half, I think more efficiencies are going to come in. So make sure when you're entering dark stores, make sure the hygiene is being maintained of the products because it's messy out there. I mean, I'm sure all of us have seen some pictures of dark stores online. So yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge is going to be managing the inventory because of the SKU complexity that fashion operates on, right? So Blinkit has about 18,000 dark stores in the country. So even if you only look at the top 10%, operating at about 2,000 dark stores and with an SKU complexity of 1,000 SKUs, 5 different styles. So you cannot have all the products in quick commerce because it's just practically impossible to deal with that much inventory, right? So which products you are going to keep in quick commerce, which are the products for which quick commerce will have the demand, So management of that, I think that is going to be the key thing.
I'd like to add just one thing. See, quick fashion, quick commerce or fast fashion or whichever category that we are going to operate with. See, the credibility always lies in the absorption of the fashion. You know, how well you are acquainting yourself with the customer. Let's not lose sight of that. In trying to deliver an experience to a customer, is our style, sort of going down? Is the fitment going down? Let's be classic about all of that. All those considered, we can exercise our way through all these different channels of fashion, consumption. But I see in the stores that the classic, the ones who take care about their fashion, they're doing the best. Your threads still matter, your weaves still matter, your colors matter the most actually in many cases. Your designs still should be as best as possible. So there are no contours on all of that.
Awesome. I think that's our time.
Can I add just
So-
one thing, right? So, see, for quick commerce, typically was not built fashion first, right? It was built grocery, FMCG, essentially that first. Now, even your quick commerce partners are figuring out at this point of time how to make this work, right? And what we as brands essentially need to do is work closely with them, right, to understand, because stockouts will happen, right? They will also be, and they are also very understanding in the sense that you cannot deploy all the inventory into a quick commerce channel, right? Now they have limited space. It's not the luxury of a long tail e-commerce operation that a quick commerce has, right? So with that thought process, it's very important that you work very closely with them, try to understand the demand signals, and not really, as Siddhant was also pointing out, ki dump inventory onto them. I think that's one big mistake that a lot of brands do when it comes to quick commerce.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That's our time. Thank you to the audience as well for being here.